Hey guys, wanted to talk a little bit about EQing because it seems to be a mysterious art to a lot of people. And what I find is a lot of people actually overdo their EQing, or their approach is a lot different. They feel like every instrument needs to be EQ'd to improve the sound, right? And I would agree to some extent that you pretty much use EQ on just about every instrument, but the one thing that most people try to do is boost the EQs of things that they feel the sounds don't have. So they're like soloing each part and then boosting the frequency, and they're like, oh, that sounds better, go to the next part, solo it, and trying to EQ that way. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to over EQ your whole mix, and your whole mix is not going to sound very good, because when you EQ everything, you're really EQing nothing. For example, when I started with EQ, I would boost the mids on just about every sound that I brought in, because individually it makes the sound seem to sound better, but it doesn't turn into a great mix. So, a lot of people who are saying they have trouble mixing usually has to do partly to EQing. So what I would say is it's very important to think of EQing more like sculpting. And what I mean by that is, first you want to start off with a pretty decent sound. You don't want to just start with a crap sound and then try to EQ its way to sounding good. Secondly, you want to sculpt with your EQ. In other words, you want to remove things, just like a sculptor would do with stone to make a statue or whatever they're sculpting. They rarely add to the rock, if ever, right? That's not to say that boosting won't help in certain situations, but if you're boosting more than like 5 dB, unless you're going for a really unnatural sound on purpose, it's usually either the wrong sound, or you should probably try to do reductive EQing to kind of get those frequencies happening instead of boosting your EQ. Reductive EQing will always give you a better result and more natural result. So that's something that you should think about. For example, if it's not a bass or a kick drum, you're usually going to remove a lot of the low frequencies from all the other sounds. If there's mud in a certain sound, after you've removed that, sometimes you'll find somewhere between like 250 and 600-ish. By pulling some of that down, it can make your sound sharper without having to boost a frequency. Because when you boost a frequency, you're leaving in all the EQs that aren't necessary, that are going to muddy up your mix. By reducing, you're making more space in your mix. I hope that makes sense. Then again, sometimes you're EQing things because you're listening to another track or something, and one track might sound brighter than your mix. So you're like, I got to turn up the brightness on all my instruments in order to match this. And that's probably going to give you a real tinny, crappy sounding mix by the end of it. A better thing to do is to either layer a sound by adding that extra frequency that you're missing, or add a different sound that has that frequency in it. And it doesn't need to be playing constantly, but just having it happen a couple times will actually bring the EQ out of your whole song. It will sound more professional to you. So in most cases, less is more, and reductive EQing is what you should be doing on most of your sounds. But boosting EQ, you want to be careful. You want to know what your prime players are. Another way to also add a little bit of excitement to a sound without getting too into EQ boosting might be using some sort of distortion or saturation just to kind of wet the sound up, and that can bring out a little brightness as well. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope that this helps you to kind of reframe the way that you should approach looking at EQ. Talk to you soon.